the ground laid a reflective vest, a traffic control flashlight, and 2 boots. And I knew right then and there what had happened.
Immediately I had a surgery to repair my broken leg, open compound fracture. The next morning, doctor came in and realized that I had torn all the ligaments in my other knee. I had surgery that Friday, and then a day or two later, I was transferred to a rehab to begin physical therapy post-op. I was there for another 3 weeks, and then I was out of work for a year and a half and had 3 additional surgeries to repair additional damage, things that weren't healing properly, and just years worth of physical therapy and rehab. Mentally, I can't tell you I've recovered.
I was in a coma for 4 days. I was in the hospital for 10, and I was out of work for 16 or 18 weeks. So I woke up on the day of Dave's funeral. I had no idea anybody was killed. I had no idea anybody else was hurt. I found out probably that afternoon that Dave had been killed, which was bad. That was tough for me. My shoulders are shot. I can't hardly lift things very much. I have a bad back. There's a lot of stuff that probably wouldn't be bothering me if I hadn't been struck by a tractor trailer.
So I was in the hospital for a total of about a month and a half, almost 2 months. And during that period of time, I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to put my clothes on, learn how to use the bathroom, awkward moments of sleeping, dealing with PTSD as well, because I was having flashbacks from the crash because I was awake throughout the whole ordeal. And just thinking about what my life was going to be like, going forward. Because I remember when I was in the critical care unit and unable to talk, and the first thing I did was I looked under the sheets, and all I saw was both my legs were gone. To be honest with you, I was ready to go back to work, but I knew I couldn't. I couldn't go back in the same capacity that I was. But I did everything I could while I was in the hospital and in the rehab center to push myself and make myself stronger than I was before.
Well, the most serious injury was to my L1 vertebrae, which was completely crushed and contributed to what's known as an incomplete spinal injury. I have paralysis below the waist. I walk with the aid of crutches and braces. My left femur was badly broken. My left lung had collapsed. My left hand was broken in multiple places, and the impact with the ground was so severe that not only did it create the cuts and abrasions and dark markings on my face, but the blow damaged the optic nerve, resulting in permanent vision loss in my left eye. So I was flown from the scene to Geisinger Medical Center, where I underwent a surgery that lasted approximately 7 hours, which did the initial repairs to my spine and my leg. A couple of days later, I had a second surgery, which lasted about 8 hours, which completed the repairs to my spine and fixed my badly broken hand. When I was discharged from Geisinger, I was transported to Penn State Hershey Rehabilitation Hospital, where I would spend the next 42 days undergoing intensive physical therapy, occupational therapy, and ultimately trying to recover from the injuries.
And we opened the door from the family room, and the hospital walls were lined with fire department personnel. Dozens, maybe 100 or more fire department people were there at the hospital for us. Well, because of my profession being non-fire service related, my initial reaction in the 24 hours or 48 hours following the incident was unequivocally, I am done with the fire service. I have no interest. I don't want to go to the fire station. I don't want to be there, have any involvement. And I received a letter from one of our paramedics, a lady who worked for our department. And basically the letter outlined, this is why we need you back, why You need to come back. And that letter was really compelling. And it reminded me, a close friend of mine, Steve Austin, who was at the wake of my father's funeral. I remember him walking up to me and sitting down beside me. Now, there was also a struck by fatality in Lineville, Pennsylvania, just 2 months earlier. And so Steve walked up to me and he slapped me on the leg and he said, "What are we going to do about this? First David Good in Lineville, and now your dad. Something has to be done."
Prior to the accident, Lionville was a very tight community. If you were not down at the station on a Friday or Saturday night, you were not going to make an engine or a rig, because there was always guys hanging out here on the weekends, doing things together. After the accident, when a large portion of your 10 of your most active firefighters and now all of a sudden unable to respond, it hit the fire company very hard. Even shortly after that, being down at the firehouse didn't seem to be as important as it was to be home with family. Over time, it's recovered and wounds have healed, but for that initial first several of months, it was tough.
Some of the officers who were working at that time, they couldn't go across that bridge without thinking about the fact that their brother's blood was spilled right there on that street. And then it was hard for my family to go across that bridge because every time they went across it, they thought the same thing. Not knowing what kind of pain I had to deal with when I was there.
I realized how frail life is. I worked 7 days a week before the accident. I don't work 7 days a week anymore. I work 5 days a week, and I spend the time with my family, with my daughter, my son, and my wife.
It was a challenge every day. A lot of the things that I had enjoyed in my life, I was a very active person. I was a lifelong runner, crazy distance runner, as I like to say it, and I couldn't do those things anymore. I needed to find ways to continue to stay active and to resume my life. Having a family, having a then 13-year-old son that needed his father and needed to be able to do activities with his father. I needed to find the things that I could do with him now with my altered life. And so almost immediately I was able to acquire an adaptive hand cycle. It's a bicycle that you power with your arms. And that gave me an activity that I could do with him. I couldn't throw the football around anymore, but I could sure go for a bike ride with my son. And so that was something that I wanted to do to try to stay active and to continue to live a life of adventure and excitement.
I think what needs to happen, I think the county has to get involved. They have to offer a specific class on highway incident safety with first responders, and it has to be a mandatory class. The fire companies each are going to have to make it mandatory that people participate in the class to be able to ride the truck to accident scenes or something like that. I just think that's the only way we're going to do it. You're going to have to mandate something. It's
amazing that after 20 years and all the education and all the research that we've done, there are still fire departments that don't get it. I'm very proud when I pass an incident scene and I see a fire company that you understand. You can clearly see that they get it. The way they position, the way they block, the distances they give themselves. It's very gratifying to see. However, there's still so much more work that needs to be done. The fire companies can get it, and we practice it. However, getting the motoring public to understand and getting them to see life through our eyes and why we're on the side of the road or in the middle of the road. It's not because we want to be there, it's because we have to be there and we want to get out of there quickly and safely and return to our own lives, whatever it may be doing. So there's been a lot of changes, a lot of good, but there's still so much more work to be done.
Slowly over time, I also started to realize the importance of traffic incident management training and traffic safety training. Everything that I had centered my trainings around had to do with tactics, had to do with self-defense of that officer and the risks associated and the hazards associated with violent assailants getting into confrontations with law enforcement. So everything was about that. What was interesting is that after I'd had my incident, I'd realized that I'd placed a level of importance for those types of classes at a much higher scale than I did for traffic-related classes. And so, I realized that I needed to focus more on the traffic safety aspect of survival, because the hazards for against officers for traffic-related incidents is very, very real.
Being able to reach out to young people on a daily basis and explain to them that this is real. And when I bring out my prosthetic legs and show them, and I talk to each and every student. If I have to do it one by one, that's great. But if I do it in a group setting, it's amazing, because I can honestly say that all the schools that I've attended, I've never had to return back.
Fire service, law enforcement, and towing agencies, from the leaders from all of these industries, were invited to come and participate in a discussion on this topic. And out of that discussion came a white paper that really kicked off the whole Responder Safety Institute, and was our position statement on this, and listed out training requirements, operational policies, national standards, and legislation that might be needed to help attract the problem. And that really was the beginning of what we later know as the Responder Safety Institute.